Now, personally for myself, I like to help people understand who is this guy. I'm here in Michigan today, born and raised in Michigan. Our headquarters is here in Michigan. We have this beautiful new facility. We've been here about a year and a half, sitting on a golf course. There's a demonstration kitchen behind me that we'll be doing tonight. And also we've turned in our conference space into the studio because everybody's moving, pivoting along the way. But growing up in Michigan, I was a horrible eater. I grew up in beefaroni, SpaghettiOs, bologna sandwiches. I had psoriasis, eczema, dandruff, immune system issues. The list goes on and on. And the doctors gave me these oral meds, topical creams. Nothing seemed to work. Your son just has sensitive skin, but I didn't. So when I changed what I was eating, my skin got better. And this is my last day working at Frito-Lay. I worked at Frito-Lay for almost 6.5 years when I was in grad school. This is a picture of my wife, Paula. I've been married 38 years. And my son and my daughter, Kristen and Matt, are twins, 34. And Paula and I now have 4 grandkids. So I've been doing this a long time, 35 plus years. I turned 63 years old next month. So again, I just want you to understand, I wasn't raised on wheatgrass and some of the stuff you might hear today. But I think, as John mentioned, everybody's a little bit out of their rhythm. For many people, chaos, uncertainty, fear, what's going to happen in the election. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. But I truly believe coming out of this pandemic, we can develop some new habits, some new rituals that we can take out of this to actually make us, and I think this is really waking everybody up that, hey, when I don't have my health, I don't have a whole lot. So again, when you talk about mental and physical health, we'll talk about this in this series, but the goal is help people get into a rhythm that's their rhythm, the rhythm that they can repeat and sustain, and that's what I've learned along the way. It's how do you get people to repeat, wash, rinse, the list goes on. Health has never been more sideways than it is today, but before this pandemic, we weren't moving in a great direction, not only in the United States, but globally. So health is a big deal. And when you think about, people ask me all the time, hey, Chris, what about genetics? I have high blood pressure, or I have high cholesterol, or type 2 diabetes. It's in my family. I get that, but this is my best explanation of how your behavior matters. In 1970, there is no obesity. The entire nation is green, less than 10%. So take a look at this. There is no obesity in 1970. And all of a sudden, 20 years go by, still very little obesity. But then you got to step back and say, oh, wait a minute, what's happening here? In the year 2000, the South and the Midwest, again, most of you are in the Illinois area. I'm in the Michigan area, the Midwest. But look at what's happening here. And then all of a sudden, the entire nation today has over 30% obesity. If you have kids or grandkids out there, we should all be concerned about this because our future's not great. In the next 10 years, we'll be at 40% obesity. So people ask me all the time, hey, Chris, you've been doing this your entire life. What's causing this major problem in our health? It's really simple. We're exposed to a lot of unhealthy foods. We have a high stress environment. We don't move. The list goes on and on. It's easy to see why we're sideways. So I'm going to give you a couple things to write down today. The first one is this. You got to start asking better questions. When you ask a better question, that reveals the answer. So again, we need to get more curious. What's going on? I mean, the vaccination, I'll talk more about this next week, might be part of the equation. But the real question is, what can I do? How can I play more offense with my health? That's a great question to ask yourself. What can you do? What offense can you take to have that more impact personally? So again, start asking a better question. If you looked at a typical medicine cabinet today, this is the top 20 lifestyle medications in the United States. Lifestyle. So cholesterol. Think about this for a minute. You might want to even write this down. In 1960, 1 in 4,000 people had type 2 diabetes. 1 in 4,000. Today, that number is 1 in 4, turning into 1 in 3. Anxiety, mental health issues, blood pressure, there's lots of reasons why we're moving this, but these are lifestyle medications, means you basically your behavior matters. And also I want to make a big point here is that food is medicine. I'll talk more about this next week. Food is information. Food is love. Obviously, food is social, but food is medicine. So the second point I want to make is this. You have beliefs. I have beliefs. If you don't tackle people's beliefs, you're not going to get great results because that might limit them on taking that certain action. So this is what we see every day in our space. Many people believe today that carbohydrates, I'm doing the keto diet, carbohydrates are not healthy. So again, if you have that belief, you're not going to be healthy. Many people believe the best way is to exercise to lose weight, or a calorie equals a calorie. There's lots of beliefs out there. So when I do live events, and John's seen me, and we've done many Merrill Lynch events. I think we've done over 90 Merrill Lynch events since April 1st. But what I always talk about when I do live events is cod liver oil. How many of you believe, I ask the audiences, how many of you believe cod liver oil tastes bad? Raise your hands. Hands go shooting up. Then I ask the second question. How many of you believe it tastes bad and you've never had it before? And people start to laugh, they carry on, they kind of get the where I pulled them into. But here's the deal. Why would I bring cod liver oil? Because most people believe it tastes bad, so they're not going to take that action of 1 to 2 tablespoons every morning. Here's the amazing results. Brain health. Everybody wants to have a healthy brain. We're seeing dementia like never before. Heart health. This is your anti-inflammatory. If you're taking ibuprofen or some form of anti-inflammatory day in and day out, one of the worst things you can put in the human body. I'll talk more about that next week. So if you get a bee sting, toothache, not a big deal, but you're taking an ibuprofen or anti-inflammatory every day, kills the gut health. And last but not least, is amazing hormones. So that's why I bring cod liver oil, because I challenge the audiences to try it, and then they try it and they're like, it's no big deal, and then they're starting to get great results. So again, if you don't tackle people's beliefs, you don't back up and ask better questions, you're not going to get the results you're looking for. So this is what I don't understand right now. With all this crazy stuff going on with the pandemic, why are we not talking about this from every highest mountaintop? This is a self-care pyramid. It means we have complete control over this individually. So how we breathe, I'll spend more time next week talking about the ins and outs of breathing. How we sleep, drinking, hydration, what we eat, structure, posture, body alignment, and then we get into daily movement. This is what we have control over. This is the offense that I want to talk to everybody about today. So we'll start with this. At OnTarget Living, we have 3 foundational pillars we teach. How you rest, how you eat, and how you move. And I want to begin with this, and I'll spend more time with this next week, but understanding stress is killing us. But really what stress is physical. So stress is physical. Pupils dilate, heart rate goes up, muscles contract, the list goes on. But here's the 2 mistakes we make with stress. We're amazing at handling acute stress. We're horrible at handling the ongoing, piling on, this thing called chronic stress. So again, the human body, fight or flight, amazing. But chronically, again, and the diseases today are not the diseases that were 50 years ago, 100 years ago. We used to have the bubonic plague, yellow fever, typhoid. Today, it's the diseases of worry. And here's the 2 mistakes most people make when they think about stress. Number 1, they overestimate the threat. I do, you do, everybody overestimates the threat. So I came back from a trip in middle of March. I have this huge schedule, very, very excited about what's happening in the year for us at OnTarget Living. I'm a professional speaker. I get home, I lost 17 speaking events in a 4-day time frame. My wife Paula says, what are we going to do? I said, I don't know. This is what I do for a living. So I had to step back and pivot for just a second and say, hey, did I overestimate the threat? And I did. But we pivoted along the way. And the second thing I want to talk about is most people underestimate their ability to handle that. I'll spend more time talking next week. But the big one is this, is how we breathe. Again, I'm going to go into the weeds next week, but understand this. You have a week to practice. It's called diaphragmatic breathing. We breathe through the nose. I would say half the population of the United States are mouth breathers. Quit breathing through the mouth. Entire week, go by, think about how much do you breathe through the mouth. If you're exercising, climbing a flight of stairs, you're speaking, you're eating, that's a different deal. But most of your day, about 95+%, should be breathing through the nose only. Number 2, as we age, the things that age the fastest in the human being, and probably the most keeps us healthiest, is this thing called lung function. You're looking right now at this thing called the diaphragm. It's a muscle underneath the lungs. It's a dome-shaped muscle. It's like a bicep. You need to strengthen it. So if you don't use the diaphragm, it gets weak. We lose lung function over time. So this week, I want you to breathe through the nose. I want you to start using the diaphragm. And you do that by putting an index finger right on the navel. And you can do this tonight when you're laying in bed. As the belly expands, like blowing up a balloon, you exhale, the belly comes back in. That's called diaphragmatic or belly breathing. And last but not least, slow it down. So next week, we're going to spend a little bit more time going into the weeds and understand a little bit more. But the first strategy to quiet the mind, to balance the nervous system, is changing how you breathe. And again, through the nose, using the diaphragm, and slowing it down. So again, the average breather in the United States, I'll repeat this next week. I'll have a couple things we'll repeat. But the average breather in the United States is 18 breaths or more per minute. A healthy breather should be breathing less than 10 breaths per minute. This is what we do when we first bring people into our training, is we measure and look at how they're breathing, because how they breathe matters. And then from there, we're going to talk about sleep. One of the greatest ways to keep the body healthy, especially during this pandemic, is we have to understand sleeping. And I think during this time, people are really struggling with the sleep. We've done over 250 webinars, and this is a conversation we're getting all the time, is I'm not sleeping. Oh, and by the way, it's the fastest growing group of medications in the United States. In fact, I think it's the fastest growing group of medications globally, because we're not sleeping as a planet. So again, sleep's a big deal. The other thing I think most of you need to understand, you're working obviously with a Merrill Lynch team, helping you have this financial health as you age, but we don't want to have an unhealthy brain. And that's called the glymphatic system. The glymphatic system with a G is the time that keeps the brain healthy. You have to have that REM sleep during that last couple hours, that rapid eye movement, that's when we dream. During REM sleep, the glymphatic system takes out the trash. So if you don't get enough REM sleep, you're not getting enough time for the glymphatic system to clean out the trash, and that's called amyloid plaque. So again, this is why LeBron James says the best, 8 hours is the magic, greatest performance enhancement drug on the planet. It's not sleep, it's getting closer to 8 hours, because that's the time allows the brain to clean out itself. So one of the things I want you to think about with sleeping is this. If I'm trying to help you get a better night's sleep, these are some simple questions I would ask you. Number one, on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the greatest, how would you rate the importance of sleep to you? Is it a 10? Is it an 8? Where is it? That's where I begin with all my clients. If you're not rating it high, you're probably not giving it its due. And sleep is so critical for healthy human bodies, mind, and again, this immune system I'll talk about next week. So that's a big question. Number two, do you plan your sleep? When we ask people about planning their sleep, it's like a deer in the headlights. What are you talking about? You plan a wedding, you plan your financial freedom, you plan, but we're not planning our sleep. So what do you mean by that? Well, what's it look like before you go to bed? What do you do before you go to bed? Do you structure a good 7, 8.5, 9 hours of sleep? Are you planning that? What's your environment look like? A cold, dark environment is optimal to keep the body relaxed. So in the Midwest, it's fall. I had a window open last night. It's cold. And one of the greatest things about cold, it keeps you asleep. So if you're not staying asleep, you could be, the nervous system's too active, or you might be missing the mineral magnesium. Magnesium helps with headaches. Magnesium helps with contraction of the heart. Magnesium helps with blood pressure. Magnesium helps with keeping you asleep. So again, I'm going to talk more about magnesium today, and also maybe next week, but this is how you get a better night's sleep. And the last one here, this is my favorite slide. I love talking about space, because I think coming out of this pandemic, this is what we're all being more aware than ever before. This is white space in 1940. There's this gigantic amount of white space, and this is the stuff we're all going to talk about at the end of our life. I was talking about this, my mom's been gone 2 years, and I remember my mom in the last 6 months of her life, all she wanted to talk about is special occasions and holidays and birth of her kids and grandkids, all these things called white space. And look at that amount of white space in 1940. And then all of a sudden the iPhone was invented in 2007, 2008. We're now getting screen time after work, and then here comes the white space shrinking. And before the pandemic, we wrote a book titled Capacity, and this is what we started researching more and more. Look at that sleep. Less than 6.5 hours. I think it's even less than that today. And look at that amount of screen time. This is actually expanded, because there's no such thing as working at home or having home life or whatever it is. It's all blurred together. And look at that little white space. So I think coming out of this pandemic, I think our white space is going to expand, because that's what's really important to people. And hopefully it does. So here's a couple easy activities to help you bring a little bit more micro breaks during your week, maybe a little bit more white space. Are you taking a stretch break? I love the foam roller. I'm using this foam roller virtually every day. I can lay on it, work on my breathing. Again, these are little micro breaks we all need to do. In fact, we had a team meeting today and I was talking about we need to take more micro breaks as a team. So I think during this pandemic, people are not getting enough recovery, not getting enough rejuvenation, and you do that basically how you breathe, how you sleep, and what kind of space do you have, and plug it right in to your calendar. So from here, we're going to move into the eat. I want to make this really simple today, and we're going to build on this each week. So again, don't feel like you need to know everything along the way. We're going to build on this. So I want to begin with this. This is a big principle that people don't understand. This is called pH balance. Growing up, what I was eating and drinking, nobody ever mentioned that upset my pH balance. So my psoriasis, my eczema, my digestive issues, my immune systems, I was too acidic. So write this down. In an alkaline scale, write down 14 is alkaline. All the way over to the other side of the paper is acid at 1. Balance is in the center at 7. So this is a scale from 14 to 1. Life in the United States today is very acidic. Stress, processed foods, energy drinks, too much alcohol, soda pop. It's easy. Chest breathing. These things all make the body super acidic. So again, all I want you to write down is this. Acid equals inflammation. We know with COVID, the people who have the worst outcomes, they already have too much inflammation. Every disease known in the human race is based on too much inflammation. So if the body has high levels of acid, it's going to have high levels of this thing called inflammation. The other thing I want you to understand is this. The more acid you become, the body wants to bring it back into balance. It does it through how you breathe. It does it through your kidneys, but the big one is minerals. We're flushing out the minerals that keep us back into balance, and that's calcium and magnesium. Those are the two big ones. No wonder everybody has restless leg. They can't stay asleep. Their heart's fluttering. It's easy to be deficient in some of these minerals, and that's what happens. So again, how we breathe, what we eat, all the stuff, we're going to make on making your body more alkaline, and then you'll have a better immune system. I'll touch base with this a little bit more this next week. The other principle I want you to understand is this. Where does it come from? So when we hear people, hey, Chris, what about GMOs or organic or reading a label? Wait a minute. Let's make this even simpler. What's the source? The closer it gets to the source, the better it is for you, and the easier it is for the body to break down and absorb. So when I talk about nutrition, on which I'm coming right now, there's two things I want you to understand. Number one, what are you lacking? That's an interesting question. What are you lacking with your daily nutritional habits? Number two, what are you not absorbing? Just because you put in the body does not mean the body's going to break it down and absorb it. The human body's not meant to consume nutrients in isolation. We got to get out of that mindset. So that's why this source is such an easy principle to teach. And once people get it, they got it. So this is a simple, easy example. This is flax seeds. Look at the price tag, $1.50 a month. What do flax seeds do? You can buy them anywhere. Flax seeds are great for your brain health. They're an anti-inflammatory. They're an omega-3 fat, and they're the highest source of fiber of any nutrient on the planet. So if you're taking Metamucil, get rid of it. It's not the source. It's very expensive. Look at the price tag. So get a cheap coffee grinder, grind it up for a couple weeks. Make sure you grind it up, because if you don't grind it up, you'll see it again. It's not broken down into a blender. It has to be in a coffee grinder, and then you just grind enough up a couple weeks. I put a couple tablespoons and some dark cherry juice, or you could put it in a smoothie. Easy things to do that. But look at that second source. Flaxseed oil, price goes up, quality goes down, and then this is where everybody's spending their time and energy on these supplements. Just because you put it in the body, I'm taking calcium, I'm taking vitamin D3, I'm taking this, I'm taking that. Wait a minute, just because you put it in does not mean the body is at breaking it down and absorbing it, and we got to get back closer to the source. And it's an easy principle to understand. So again, pH gets your body more alkaline and get closer to the source. So now let's build the body. We start with water. Make this so simple. Put water on your nightstand. If you get up and go to the bathroom, drink some water. Your body's already dehydrated. Number two, drink 6 ounces of water first thing in the morning before you do anything. Number three, half your body weight in ounces per day. Take this challenge. Take a pitcher of water, set it on your kitchen table, see how many ounces of water you drink a day. You will be shocked. Most people aren't even close to half their body weight in ounces per day. So if you weigh 160 pounds, 80 ounces a day. Again, if you're more active, maybe a little bit more. And also you're seeing lemons, limes, ginger are very alkalizing by digestion. You squirt it in your eye, very acidic, but by digestion. So if people have acid reflux or gout out there, this is an easy step that I do at the very beginning of the week. I cut up 2 lemons, I cut up 2 oranges, and I add them to my water throughout each morning, and it's an easy thing to do. So again, we start with hydration and improving the quality of the beverage you're consuming. From here, what are most people missing? It's simple. Most people, 95% or more, are missing omega-3 fatty acids, brain health, heart health, anti-inflammatory, and hormones. Cod liver oil. If you've never tried cod liver oil, this is our cod liver oil. We get it from Dutch Harbor, Alaska. The livers are frozen on the boat, which creates high levels of vitamin D3 naturally. So you mean to tell me I don't have to take vitamin D3? You do not. Cod liver oil, if the livers are frozen on the boat. So again, it's line caught, it's organic lemon, it's really smooth. Our creative director, Steven, put together this funny video about sampling. Again, it's an easy product to consume, 1 to 2 tablespoons first in the morning. I've already talked about flax seeds, and chia seeds are in the same family of flax seeds. Chia seeds are high in magnesium, but chia seeds, you have to add liquid to them. So one of my favorite ways to do that, I get some almond milk or coconut milk, and I take 1 to 2 ounces, 1 tablespoon of the chia seeds. You don't have to grind them up. And I put some cinnamon or some nutmeg or maybe even a dash of maple syrup or local honey, and I put in the refrigerator. It's like a pudding. It's shockingly how good it is. So again, these are your omega-3s, flax, chia, and the cod liver oil. And then the other thing most people are missing is this thing called chlorophyll. And what chlorophyll is, it's anything dark green. So kale, spinach, broccoli. But one of the highest sources of chlorophyll on the planet is this thing called Spirulina chlorella. Spirulina chlorella is a freshwater algae. It detoxifies the body, it energizes the body, and creates this amazing gut health. So I'll talk about this next week. You have gut health issues, you want to have a better immune system. This is an easy thing, doesn't cost hardly anything. You take 10 tablets a day. Don't chew the tablets. You chew them once, you won't chew them again. And then your goal is to, as adults, slowly build up to 30 a day. My grandson Brady that lives at our house, he's not quite 2. He takes 5 to 8 Spirulina chlorella tablets every day, and he chews them. But I wouldn't recommend that. You just wash it down with water. And the other thing you're looking at is frozen wheatgrass. Wheatgrass is the highest source of minerals of any food on the planet. 3 to 5 ice cubes first thing in the morning. This is what most people are missing. So if you can get people to do water, some form of omega-3s, maybe slowly move into some form of chlorophyll, and then we move into the food. So you have this food target in front of you. If you do not have it, we'll be sending this after this webinar today. I designed this food target in 1994, working at one of the largest health clubs in the world, the Michigan Athletic Club, over 10,000 members. And what I learned along the way, that people didn't quite understand the 3 macronutrients. And they didn't understand food quality. Calories are important, but food quality always comes first. So the red area is the processed foods, the green area is the whole foods, and all the goal is to slowly upgrade whatever you do. It's not hard to do. We even have a handout we'll be sending you called Brand Favorites. So if you like a coffee and you like put a creamer in there, better creamers. If you like Pop-Tarts, a better Pop-Tart. If you like chips, crackers, doesn't matter. These are slow upgrades along the way. But here's what I want you to take away with this target. There's 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. If you take a macronutrient out of the diet, you'll have a macro problem. So every diet, go back in the 80s, it was the high carb, no fat. In the 90s, 2000, it was the high protein, no carb. And today it's the high fat, no carb. You can see how this just keeps making a circle. But anytime you take a macronutrient out of the diet, I'll go into the weeds next week about the immune system. You cannot have a healthy mind and body. You need a little bit of each. So when you look at carbohydrates, when you think of them, this is the basic when you look at it over time. Let me go back to your carbohydrates here. So when you think of carbohydrates, this is going to be good for your gut health and your brain health. So this is your fruits and vegetables and ancient grains like oatmeal. These are imperative for you to have this amazing health. So again, what do they all have in common? They're all sugars. So when I hear people say it's high in sugar, of course it is. That's what it is. Obviously, a banana is going to have more sugar than, let's say, asparagus, but they're all carbohydrates, they're all sugars. One of the greatest things you can do for your overall health and gut health is oatmeal. Why? It helps the gut naturally clean itself and absorb. A basic apple, here, hey, what about apple cider vinegar? If I can get you to an apple on a regular basis, shocking, and then other carbohydrates that help the brain and serotonin, that's going to be like starchy carbohydrates like a potato. So when people say, I can't eat this, I can't eat that, wait a minute. If it's close to the source, nothing's off limits. So again, the goal is to upgrade. Whatever you eat the most of, that's where we begin. From here, we move into proteins. Same principle. I am not a fan of cow's milk. The protein molecule is very difficult for the human body to break down because it's too large. If you have a cow outside your door, that's not what I'm talking about. But once you homogenize and pasteurize milk, it's very difficult for the body to break down. So I'm a big fan of plant-based milks like an almond or a coconut or a cashew. You can actually make them or you can buy them. It's easy to do. But whatever proteins you like, I eat meat. So the movie Game Changers comes out, our whole ecosystem blows up. What do you think about eating meat? If you like eating meat as a protein source, great. Here's my 2 cents. Eat less animal protein and make it better. That's it. Eat less of it and make it better. If you're trying to get most of your protein or all your protein from a plant source, great. But for many people, they have to know what they're doing. Just because they're not eating animal does not mean they're always healthy. So again, nuts and seeds, I'm a big fan of that. And also, most of your vegetables are high in protein. So I haven't used a protein powder in many, many years. I use hemp seeds. I use Brazil nuts. Brazil nuts and pumpkin seeds are high in selenium and zinc. I'll talk more about this next week. So whatever proteins you like, make them better. And the last but not least is fats. Fats are critical. 50% of the brain is made out of fat, and 50% is water. You need these healthy fats. Saturated fats, it's like coconut oil or real deal coconut, extra virgin olive oil, macadamia nuts. And then we move into the omega-3 fats. We talked about this, flax seeds, chia seeds, cod liver oil. And then the omega-6 fats, which nobody really talks much about, and that's going to be your hemp seeds, Brazil nuts, pumpkin seeds. And when you bring this all together, what do? They help decrease inflammation, they help this amazing brain health, and they also help with this thing called hormones. Because hormones need these omega-3s and omega-6s, and especially during COVID, people are not eating maybe the healthiest way they want to, and then now they're missing some of these things that make their brain super happy and healthy. The last piece here before we do a little Q&A is this thing called movement. Now, I'm an exercise physiologist by training. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of the word exercise. So here's a couple things around movement. Number one, if you could put movement in a bottle, it'd be the most prescribed medication on the planet. So why don't we move if we know it's so good for us? So to me, there's a lot of reasons behind that, but I want to change the mindset today is this. I want you to move your body every single day. Doesn't need to be a lot, like compound interest, but take the 10-minute movement challenge. Move your body every day for 10 minutes. It helps with elimination, helps with anxiety. There's nothing better for the mind than moving your body. We all know right now that motion creates positive emotion. During this time, we have more mental health issues than ever before. It's time that we need to step back and develop. And now if you're working out 3 or 4 times a week, great. But on top of that, I want you to move your body. Also, on our website, we have some restorative movements that make the body feel amazing. They're simple movements that help restore, quiet the mind, relax the body. So if you're having trouble sleeping or relaxing, it doesn't always have to be super strenuous. And last but not least, we need to find activities we love and play. So if you looked at movement, most people are missing this. We talked about lung function as we age, mobility, flexibility. I turn 63 years old next month. I spent a lot more time than ever before working on my mobility and flexibility. Also, strength training is the fountain of youth. If you're not strength training, here's a great opportunity to maybe learning how to do some easy strength exercises. I teach everybody learning how to do a body weight squat, some form of a push-up or row. We need understand strength training is the fountain of youth, and we need all bring in some strength training to our deal. All right, so on the back of your handout, this is a 2.5 to 3 minute movement, and all it is called dynamic warm-up. These are just a group of exercises. We'll be sending you a video. You have this easy thing to follow. Again, simple, easy things you do. When you take the arms overhead, that's called the lymphatic system. That's a pump that cleans the body, helps the immune system. We'll talk more next week. So just moving your body a little bit, this is an easy micro break you take during the day. Also, this is called foundation exercises. These are just a group of yoga poses. This is not a yoga class per se. These are just yoga movements that work on mobility, flexibility, strength, and balance all rolled into one. This is a 5-minute routine. And as I just briefly mentioned here, when you look at an overall picture, dynamic warm-up foundations, but most people are trying to out-exercise still today all this cardio. So again, I'm a big fan of get your heart rate up and working on your breathing and all that, but you don't need to spend too much time. If you want to go out for a long walk or a long bike ride or a hike or whatever, no big deal. But if you're thinking you're going to out-exercise a bad diet, that's not going to happen. And again, you can see the strength training here, but what you're not seeing in this pie is play. We need to play more. So one of the greatest things you can do for your mind is any kind of racket or paddle sport. We're playing ping pong on a regular basis in my basement. One of the greatest things for the mind is ping pong. So again, find activities that don't have to be super strenuous, but they're fun, and that's what I mean by play. So again, we need to have the mindset around movement, move your body every day, and again, take that 10-minute challenge. So if you need to figure out, okay, Chris, what are we going to do? Where are we beginning? Remember, this is a 4-part series. I want you to just think about 1 or 2 things you're going to walk away doing. So under the rest, I'm going to go into more in the weeds next week, but how we breathe is a big deal. Are you breathing through the nose? Are you using the diaphragm? Are you slowing it down? Challenge yourself. How many breaths do you take per minute? Try this tonight. Underneath the movement, we'll talk more about this next week, or the eating, is we're not talking about fasting enough. So I'm a big fan of a 12 to 14 hour overnight cleanse. Great for the body. Intermittent fasting gets to be more of a diet. So again, I want you to think about that. Are you drinking enough water? Maybe 1 or 2 superfoods. What are you doing there? So again, think about 1 or 2 things that you're going to walk away doing. What can you upgrade that you're currently eating the most of? And then under the movement, are you moving on your daily basis? Are you working on your mobility, flexibility? Are you playing enough? But we need to understand the power of movement, and that we all need to bring it in, because the greatest benefit of moving the body is what it does for the mind. If you need to reach me, this is my direct email. I will answer your email. In fact, many times I'll have you get on a phone call. Again, we're here to help you. We have an amazing team here in East Lansing, Michigan. And again, I'm happy to help you. So this is my direct email. Also, check out our podcasts. Come out twice a month. Some great interviews, some great content. So check that out. And also, if you want to follow us on social media, go to Facebook, Ontario Living Facebook. So these are ways to stay in touch with us. We also have a relatively new app. We're here to help you. Lots of videos, a lot of content that we can share with you. So I'm going to do, this is the last slide, and then John and I will open it up for a little Q&A. But I had this amazing professor when I was at graduate school at Michigan State University. And this guy changed my life. And I remember one day when I was interviewing him initially before I got in school, he goes, Chris, you're a prevention guy. You need to go out in this space in prevention. So this guy, his name was Dr. Kwok Ho, and he was a teacher of life. And I remember one night in class he said this to all of us. He said, life's like flying a 747. All the energies that take off and landing. If you can get that plane up in the air and you create some momentum, that's the magic. And that's really what I want to share with you in the 4-part series. I want you to think about 1 or 2 things, just taking 1 or 2 things that you're going to build on. Next time you're going to hear me talk more about this, going from 0 to 1. That's the magic, going from here just to taking 1 step. So I want you to build 1 habit at a time, and I'm going to keep pounding this in the 4-part series, that you have the power. And more than ever before, we need to understand that we have the power to control and take more offense with our health, and that's the greatest asset we can all have, is that optimal health.